not gone online yet. So if I start now, nothing is real but God. Nothing matters but love for God. God is the only reality. All else that seems real is illusion. God and I are one. Meher Baba. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. Thanks to beloved Baba, Jai Baba to all of you. We are reading God Speaks. We are on part 9, which is 10 states of God. And page number is 160, 160, last two paragraphs. Yesterday we started this, yeah. So, page number 160, and this is session number 35.
Mayapapa says that when one who has realized this state of God tries to describe it to others, this act results in a description not of the first, but of the second state of God, God in the beyond state.
We did that yesterday, that there is no way in which you can describe anything about state 1 of God, which is the beyond state, the Parakmat Parbrahma state, the Varagun Vara state, indescribable, where, as Baba says, the wings of your imagination, it just fades. You cannot penetrate that. So the one who has realized God realized being, when they want to explain or state, they can only explain up to the beyond state of God, which is state 2 in the chart of the 10 states of God. Good.
It is the eternity of all eternities, as-ul azal, because no eternity can be conceived of to precede or to follow it.
When we talk about eternity, when we say God is eternal, what does it mean? Always was, is, and ever will remain. There was never a time when God was not. There will never be a time where God will be not. If you ask a question, what was before God? The answer will be God. And before that, again, the answer will be God. So here Baba says that this is the eternity of all eternities. That means you just cannot conceive of anything to precede or follow it.
Here, all indications are blotted out. Munkata ul izhara, since no other thing exists that can be pointed out or referred to.
There is no reference point that can be pointed out. That means, in other words, what Baba says, that all indications are blotted out. You cannot indicate that a reference point is not with regard to the eternity of the God in the beyond state.
This pure essence, Zat al-Bahad, is not aware of anything, even of itself.
That we have done, that in God in the beyond state, there is no consciousness, not even aware of itself. That state, Baba says, is the state of God is. That's all. But consciousness is not.
This state has been referred to by the Sufis as Vara ul Vara, the beyond state of God. Vedanta calls it Paratpat Parabrahma.
This is also another name which we did yesterday, Gaher ul Gaher state. Same thing. The hidden of the hidden, the secret of the secret, the sacred of the sacred. That is that state 1 of God.
This is the state in which God is neither Nirguna, attributeless, nor Saguna, with attributes, neither Nirakar, formless, nor Sakar, with forms.
Neither Nirgun Nirakar nor Sagun Sarkar. That is state 1. In state 2, you will see that there is Nirgun Nirakar as well as Sagun Sarkar.
Of all the principal 10 states of God, The first and the most original state is the beyond state of God.
So this is the most original state, which is called beyond the beyond state.
Where there were no other states of God in the beyond the beginning of the beginning, only the most original infinite state of God, that is, God is state, prevailed as the beyond state of God.
So that is what we just said, that this is only known as God is state.
In
This is the most original state.
In the infinitude of this beyond state of God, only the infinity of infinitude is manifest as the unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum, and all other states, attributes, and aspects of God, including infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness, are all latent as the nothing in that infinitude of the unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum as the everything. Everything also includes the nothing.
This paragraph is very important. In this state of the beyond state of God, except for the infinity of the infinitude that is manifested in that state, everything else, everything is in the state of latency. It is latent. In other words, in the big ball of the beyond state of God, all other states are included in that state. The everything also includes the nothing, which in fact produces nothingness, which is the creation. But in other words, everything, which means really everything, is in that beyond state of God, but it is in a latent form, unmanifest form. Because if it is not inside, it can never be manifested out. So in other words, I repeat the paragraph which is of importance because we may need to refer to it again and again. In the infinitude of this beyond state of God, only the infinity of infinitude is manifest. As now these are so many words which you have to remember: unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine, vacuum. That is what it is manifested as this. And all other states, attributes, and aspects of God, including infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness, are all latent. Latent as what? Latent as the nothing in that infinitude of the unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum as the everything. And that everything also, yeah, he kept it. And that everything also includes the nothing. Because if nothing was outside the everything, then that everything does not become infinite. So in other words, this paragraph needs to be understood very properly, except for the infinity of the infinitude of God, everything was unmanifest or everything was latent, which includes all the other aspects, all the other states, everything. Right.
Thus, the most original, beyond state of God is that state where one can only say God is eternally, and that is in this most original state, God is neither infinitely nor finitely conscious nor unconscious of self or of his own state of infinitude.
Even he is not conscious of his own state of infinitude.
In this state, God is also neither conscious nor unconscious of illusion or reality.
So that is the most original first state of God.
Like how we sleep, our sleep state, deep sleep state.
Yeah, Soumya is why don't you speak in the mic? like sound that we have been repeating. Like deep sleep state, when we go in deep sleep state, every single time. I don't want to say every single night, because some people have the habit of sleeping in the day also, like me. So
2.
Now state 2, now state 1 begets state 2. And that is one of the most important states, because unless and until state 2 is there, there cannot be state 3, which is Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. And unless the state 3 is there, there cannot be creation or evolution. And unless the evolution is there, you cannot become a human being. Unless human being is there, you cannot go back to God. So now we are coming to state 2 of God.
God in the beyond state. We have already stated that the beyond state of God can never be adequately described. God realized beings, when they try to describe the beyond state, succeed only in describing the beyond state of God, which is the Allah of Sufis, the Ahura Mazda of Zoroastrians, the Paramatma of Vedantists, God, the Father of Christians, and the Oversoul of some philosophers.
That means we have done this earlier, that if at all a God realized being wants to explain or tell anybody or tell us about God, they can only reach up to the beyond state of God and can never go into the beyond state of God. And this beyond state of God is referred to as Allah by Sufis, as Paramatma by Vedantis, as Ahura Mazda by the Zoroastrians, and some philosophers they call Father, God the Father. So that is the state up to which one can reach and not beyond.
God in the beyond state is absolute, unlimited, and infinite, the one without a second.
Now try to understand here also, state 1 of God begets state 2 of God, which is also unlimited, absolute, unlimited, infinite, and as always, indivisible. So that is the state 2. And why is it that state 2 was necessary? Because nothing has ever happened, nothing can ever happen, and nothing is ever happening in state 1. So in order for something to manifest, state 1 begets state 2, which is exactly identical in all respects like state 1, except that if there is any possibility of anything happening, it can only happen in state 2 and not state 1 of God. I hope I'm clear. Right? So that is why it was necessary to beget state 2. We have got the chart, but they will not be able to see. We'll come to that maybe next time, because we won't be able to complete the 10 states today, may not be. So we'll have a screen here, and with a whatever you call it, that laser light, we can show those who have the book, they will be able to know that there is state 1 of God, which is the beyond state, and from there you have the state 2. Now the beauty of this state 2 of God is, it's not one state, it is state 2A, state 2B, and state 2C. If you open the chart, for those who have the book, so state 2 has got three states. State 2A, which is infinite unconsciousness. State 2B, which is infinite consciousness. And state 2C, which is actually the 10th state of God, which is the office, the working unit. Can you see state 2C, which is the working unit of all the perfect masters and the avatar when they are in the physical form. No, I tell you the page. It's against page 158. Opposite page 158. Opposite page 158. Then in the chart. Are you putting the chart in?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, it's there. So those who are online, they'll be able to maybe follow better. Unfortunately, we don't have another screen. Opposite page 158. ONE1, FIV5. I don't know the spelling of it. Yes, yes. Okay, got it. Correct, correct. Now let's go to the reading. You will understand, and we will once again maybe recap the whole thing once we have the chart. So we'll very briskly. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, sir. So now this is now what has happened is state 2B has come into being. Go ahead.
Mayor Baba, when explaining the second stage of God, stressed that fundamentally, state 2 is in no way different from state 1 of God. The sub-states A, B, and C of state 2 of God are what create the difference.
So fundamentally, state 1 of God, which is the Paratpar Parabrahma, and state 2 of God, which is the Paramatma state, there is no difference except for state 2 has three different sections. State 2A, as I said earlier, infinite unconsciousness. State 2B, infinite consciousness. State 2C is the office where the avatar and the perfect masters, when they are in the physical form, they work. So the whole of this journey in God speaks, Baba says, is to go from state 2A to state 2B. That is the journey. But you can't go from state 2A to state 2B shortcut. There is no shortcut. You have to go via state 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. State 8 of God is actually God realization. I'm just summing up so that it's easy. State 8 of God is God realization. Where the Muslims are there, they experience the fana fila. Now, if the Mazhub does not drop the body in state 8 and gets back the consciousness of the three bhuvanas, of the three spheres, gross, subtle, and mental, and proceeds further on to state 9, which is the Tuliya Avastha, or they are also known as Paramhamsa. Then you are going from 8 to 9, where sometimes you are Salik Mazhub, which means you have Sulukiyat, that means consciousness more, and Mazhubiyat less. We'll come to that. Or Mazhub Salik. And then that is the state of a Salik. And then you move on to state 10, which is so God realization is in state 8. Very few souls work their out, they walk on from 8 to 9, and then from 9 to 10. So that is how Baba has explained. And once you are in 10, or you are in 9, or you are in 8, 8 is God realized. When you drop your body, you go and reside in your bungalow in state 2B forever. You enjoy that state 2B. That means all God realized souls finally end up in state 2B because that is the final destination. The whole of this game is to go from state 2A to state 2B. In state 2B, it is Nirgun Nirakar, that means Allah, Ahura Mazda. They have nothing, actually nothing to do with Paramatma. They have nothing to do with creation. Sorry, God the Father, right? Whereas in state 2C, which is Sagun Sakar, which means they have a form and they have attributes. They are the avatar and the perfect masters, and they occupy state 2C, which is their office of functioning. They will function from their office, and when of their body, they also go back to state 2B and rest forever. I'm just giving you a synopsis so that when you read, it will be easy for you to understand. Yeah. Absolutely different. Absolutely. Planes come in the involutionary process. This state, now the creation has not started yet. The creation has not yet started. The creation starts with state 3. Because God is infinitely unconscious in state 2A, He wants to know who am I, and in order to know who am I must experience who I am not.
State 4, my God is embodied soul.
I'm talking about creator, preserver, and destroyer. Creation. It starts from creation. God, the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer is in state 3, where He creates. And at certain places, Baba has used the word three in one, all combined. They are called Ishwar. And we say Ishwar, Ishwar. But Ishwar actually is unconscious God. Ishwar is not conscious of himself. He is in the he's so occupied in creating, preserving and destroying Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, all in one called Ishwar, that he doesn't know anything about realization. Then embodied soul, which is four, and then all the, the various aspects of evolution, and then human being, which is five,
God.
and then subtle world, mental world. So we'll come to that.
God
I'm
is
just giving you an
embodied as
overview, so it
Avatar.
will become a
God
little.
is embodied as avatar. There is, we'll come to it.
Okay, come, go ahead.
How and when,
How,
when
and
and
where.
where the difference came into being is described as follows from the explanations of Meher Baba. This
Now
is written
this
by
is,
Iraj.
I keep repeating this, that, this is by, certain things are ununderstandable, as I said earlier. So we have to just pass it. Okay, Baba says it, so we go, because it is not conceivable. Because here this sentence, this paragraph will show how unconceivable it is, that the moment the urge was, there was an insurge, this particular, anyway, let her read, so we'll read the beauty of Baba's language. Huh?
At the instant when the latent, original, infinite whim of the infinite God to know himself, who am I, is about to surge in the unbounded uniformity of the unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum of the most original, beyond state of God, the very prospect of this infinite urge to know, prompting the eternally tranquil poise of God in the unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum, becomes inconceivable.
Read the other paragraph, so we'll
But the
join
fact
together. Huh?
of the insurge of the infinite whim and its very inconceivability spontaneously brings into being another aspect of God's state other than the most original beyond state of unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum, where there is neither prospect of aspect nor attribute, neither the infinite of finite consciousness nor the infinite of finite unconsciousness, and where, except for the infinity of God, which is eternally manifest, every other thing is latent, including the infinite whim and the consequent infinite urge to know.
Okay, so here let us try to go a little deeper. The infinite whim, which is the urge to know who am I. Baba uses the word hukki at some place. Baba uses the word lahar, just whim. And a whim is a whim. There is no question of when. Yeah, it's okay. Here Baba says, how, when, and where the difference came into being is described as follows from the explanations of Meher Baba. And as I said, a kind of a rider that we may not be able to really deeply understand this, because we have to take it as Baba's words, because Baba said, now what does he say? At the instant when the latent, original, infinite whim. The whim was there. It is the original whim. Who am I? It was latent in the beyond state of God. As we have said earlier, that except for the infinity of the infinitude of the beyond state of God, everything inside was latent. And in that latency, one aspect of that was the whim. The whim was also latent. The hukki was also latent. Yeah, so supta. They understand what is latency. Supta, not gupta. All right. At the instant when the latent, original, infinite whim of the infinite God to know himself, who am I, is about to surge. About to surge. It is not surge, it is just about to surge in the unbounded uniformity of the unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum of the most original, beyond the beyond state of God. All this we have done it earlier in that these words, unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum of the most original, beyond state of God. The very prospect of this infinite urge to know, the very prospect prompting the eternal, tranquil poise of God in the unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum becomes inconceivable. You cannot conceive, you cannot imagine that such an urge can ever come into fruition, which is latent in the beyond state. So now what Baba is saying is the very inconceivability created this second stage where things are possible. Are you getting what I'm saying? How beautifully, it's like a poem, you can say, how beautifully he says. Now Baba says, but the fact of the insurge, of the infinite whim, and insurge generally is taken as insurgence, like something which is opposite. Now in the beyond state, there is this, people going against the government, there's an insurgence. So in the same way, in the beyond state, nothing can happen, it is tranquil. But the very insurge of the infinite whim and its very inconceivability, it cannot be conceived that anything can ever happen in the beyond state. This very thing spontaneously brings into being another aspect of God's state other than the most original beyond state of unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum, where there is neither prospect or aspect, nor attribute, neither the infinite or finite, where except for the infinity of God, which is eternally manifest, every other thing is latent, including the infinite whim and the consequent infinite urge to know. Baba is repeating this over and over again. So basically I think the crux of it is that the very fact that such an insurgence can ever take place is inconceivable in the beyond state of God, which is state one of God. And this very inconceivability, it can never happen. It is impossible that anything can happen in state one of God. This inconceivability created a second state of God where it is possible that the surge may emerge. Getting my point? So here Baba what should I say? So very artistically, he's saying this is not possible. But at the point when that urge was about to come, this second stage of God came into being, which is exactly the same as the state one, no difference, except state one, absolute, boundless, like a vacuum. In state two, what came out was the three states. That is state 2A, 2B and 2C. We'll come to that. I hope these two paragraphs are clear. They are profoundly, the way Baba has expressed, so beautifully he is explaining. Now go ahead.
Thus, it is that the very inconceivability of the prospect of the infinite whim surging in the beyond state automatically unfolds the prospectiveness, which is also latent.
So the prospectiveness was also latent in the beyond state. So that prospectiveness becomes manifest as state 2. Go ahead.
Which is also latent in the infinite state, and this manifestation of prospectiveness bestows upon the most original beyond state of God the prospect of an infinite aspect different from that of the most original and eternal state.
So, in the first two, we realized that when it was about to urge, how can it ever happen it is inconceivable that anything can happen in state 1. That very inconceivability, created the prospectiveness, that there is a possibility, there is a prospect of something happening in state other than state A1. So I'll read the last paragraph again. Thus, it is that the very inconceivability of the prospect of the infinite whim surging in the beyond state automatically unfolds the prospectiveness. The very inconceivability of the prospect automatically unfolds the prospectiveness, which is also latent. We have done it earlier also. Everything except for the infinity of the infinitude is latent in that beyond state of God, state 1. So here Baba says, it automatically unfolds the prospectiveness which is also latent in the infinite state, and this manifestation of prospectiveness bestows upon the most original beyond state of God the prospect. That means there is a prospect of something happening. The prospect of an infinite aspect different from that of the most original and eternal state. So how gradually, step by step, now Baba is explaining.
The second state of God, accordingly, comes into being only as another infinite aspect of the most original first state.
So it is also infinite, it is also eternal. So that came as, what should I say? State 1 begets, you can say, use the word begets, state 2, which is exactly like state 1, except that there is a possibility, there is a prospectiveness of something happening in state 2, which was never there in state 1.
This second state of the 10 principal states of God is called the original beyond state of God.
The original was original beyond the beyond state. This state 2 is now the original beyond state of God, which is exactly in all respects like the beyond state, except that there is a prospectiveness of something happening, and except the difference between 1 and 2 is that it has 3 states, 2A, B and C.
It is to be heeded well that this original second state of God, denoted in the chart as 2 and termed God in beyond state, is in no way to be taken as a state of God altogether, other than the most original first state of God, denoted in the chart as 1 and termed God in the beyond
So it
state.
is not a state other than the original except for these aspects. Yeah. The only difference.
The only difference between state 1 and state 2 of God is that state 1 is of unbounded, absolute, infinite divine vacuum, where even the remotest prospect of the insurge of the infinite whim is inconceivable.
Baba is repeating, it is inconceivable that anything ever can happen in the beyond state of God, state 1.
Therefore, only at the instant when the original infinite whim insurges in the infinitude of the God is state could infinite God conceive the infinite original urge to know as who am I? That is, only when the aspectless state 1 of God in beyond gets the aspect of state 2 of God in beyond. Paratpar Parabrahma thus gets the infinite aspect of Paramatma.
I'll repeat the last paragraph just for sake of repetition. So basically we have already explained that, but how beautifully Baba says, the only difference between state 1 and state 2 of God is that state 1 is of unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum. He repeats this time and time again, where even the remotest prospect of the insurge of the infinite whim is inconceivable. Inconceivable. Therefore, only at the instant when the original infinite whim insurges in the infinitude of the God is state. See, one of the aspects of insurgence is it's like an uprising, like a revolt. That's one meaning. The other one is it's insurge means it's surged within itself that way, right? So therefore, only at the instant when the original infinite whim insurges in the infinitude of the God is state, could infinite God conceive the infinite original urge to know as who am I, that is, only when the aspectless state one of God. State one of God has no aspects, neither conscious nor unconscious, neither sagun sakar nor nirgun nirakar, neither infinitely conscious, neither infinitely nothing is there. It is just the divine vacuum state. God is state. Only when that aspectless state one of God in beyond gets the aspect of state two of God in beyond, that is when it gets the aspect, Paratpar Parbrahma thus gets the infinite aspect of Paramatma. So in state 2, God is known as Paramatma. In state 1, he is called as Paratpar Parbrahma. In state 1, he is called as the beyond state, or as we know, Vara ul Vara state, Gaib ul Gaib state. In state 2, he is known as Paramatma, he is known as Allah, he is known as Ahura Mazda, he is God as God the Father, and what else? Whatever. Ahura Mazda, I said, huh? Okay. It is also...
It is also to be noted very carefully that the beyond state marked in the chart as 2 is fundamentally the same as the beyond state of God marked in the chart as 1.
You can see that there is a lot of repetition. And one of the aspects of repetition is it sinks in our head. He has this practice, habit of repeating, not only in God speaks, but even in his personal life, in his physical life, when he was physically present in his physical ministry, he would tell the same thing over and over again to the Mandli, where Mandli would get very much fed up. Yes, I know. No, but remember that, yes, Baba. No, but like that. I'm not saying that is replicated here, but here it helps us to understand the things in a better way. So he's repeating the same thing. It is also to be noted very carefully. We've already noted twice, but he's again noting. It is also to be noted very carefully that the beyond state marked in the chart as 2 is fundamentally the same as the beyond state of God marked in chart as 1.
But in the chart, these two states, state 1 and state 2, are depicted separately, because even though state 2 of God in beyond state is the same original state of God, yet it is not the most original state of God, which is the beyond state.
So he is differentiating between the most original state and the original state. He uses this word, even when we have gone through the entire book almost, where Baba talks about, the most finite, and the most next, and that kind of, he wants to emphasize. So for the sake of emphasis, he is saying that this state too is the most original, is the original state of God, but not the most original state.
This necessarily follows because God could conceive the infinite insurge of the infinite original whim and could get the infinite original impulse of the infinite original urge to know as who am I only in state 2.
He can get the prospect of such a thing happening in state 1 is inconceivable. So automatically state 2 got created, and he could get this urge or insurge to know himself, who am I, in state 2.
When God eternally in state 1 2 within his own eternal state 1, which is the most original beyond state.
I'll read the last 3 lines for the benefit of those who are on the other side. When God eternally in state 1 assumes the infinite original aspect of state 2, the important word is within. It is not separated, it is within his own eternal state 1, which is the most original beyond state. I'm sorry. I don't know. I had kept it on mute, but anyway. Sorry.
To be more explicit, in both
Dara,
these
I'm in a
states
meeting.
of
Can I
God,
call back?
states 1 and
Sorry,
2,
God speaks going on.
except for the eternally manifest infinity of the eternal infinitude of God as the unbounded, absolute, infinite divine vacuum,
State 2.
all
When God
attributes,
eternally
all
infinite,
aspects,
absolute, infinite
all
divine
states, infinite and most finite consciousness and unconsciousness of God, including God's own infinite triune nature of power, knowledge, and bliss, and all other things are all latent in the unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum.
I'll read this paragraph again. Sorry for the disturbance. That was the Bombay Center wanting something from me. To be more explicit, in both these states of God, which is states 1 and 2, except for the eternally manifest infinity of the eternal infinitude of God. We've done it again and again. That except for the infinity of the infinitude of God, everything was latent in state 1. So here again it's repetition. Except for the eternally manifest infinity of the eternal infinitude of God as the unbounded, absolute, infinite divine vacuum, all attributes, all aspects, all states, infinite and most finite consciousness and unconsciousness of God, including God's own infinite triune nature, power, knowledge, and bliss, and all other things, are all latent in the unbounded, absolute, infinite, divine vacuum. It's a repetition where Baba says that in that everything, except for the infinity of the infinitude, everything was there, but it was latent, it was unmanifest. And in that everything, there was also the nothing. So here nothing also takes the importance, because at the creation point, what comes out of the nothing is the nothingness of the nothing, which is oozing out from that Om point or creation point and goes on expanding ad infinitum. And why is it expanding ad infinitum? Is because this nothing is co-joined with the everything. And since everything is infinite, this nothing which produces the nothingness, which is nothing but creation, is also infinite. The only difference between the two infinity is that in the original one, there is the infinity of oneness. It is infinite in its unitary, Advait. In the infinity of the illusion, that infinity is of manyness. I hope I am making myself clear. So that we'll come to that, but okay. So this much is clear.
All this that is latent in the infinitude could only have the scope of manifestation in state 2 of God, which may be said to differ from state 1 only in this respect of having this infinite scope of manifestation of all that is infinitely and most finitely latent.
Yeah, I'll repeat the last paragraph. All this that is latent in the infinitude, which means latent in state 1, could only have the scope of manifestation in state 2 of God, because state 1 nothing happens, which may be said to differ from state 1 only in this respect. Which respect? Of having this infinite scope of manifestation of all that is infinitely and most finitely latent as the nothing. Everything that is latent in the beyond state of God is of the nothing, is nothing. You see, that means except for the, as I keep repeating, infinity of the infinitude, everything that is latent, and that everything that is latent is of the texture of nothing. So Baba says, except for this latent as the nothing, in the infinitude of God as the everything. The infinitude of God is the everything, in which there is latency, and that whatever is latent is of the nothing.
Consequently, the infinite original whim of God, when it once surged, had the feasibility of surging only in state 2 of God.
That we have done. Nothing can happen in state 1. So everything that can happen, that has happened, that will happen, everything will be happening in state 2 of God only.
And when it surged, it did so uniformly in the infinitude of God. But when the whim surged, the insurge of this whim could never be experienced by God in his infinitely most independent beyond state 1. It was experienced by God eternally in the most of his state 2 as God in the beyond state.
Because God in the beyond state cannot experience anything. So every experience that God has is only in the beyond state of God, which is the Paramatma state of God. I'll repeat this paragraph again. It is good to repeat because then it really sinks. Consequently, the infinite original whim of God, when it once surged, had the feasibility, that means feasibility, possibility of surging only in state 2 of God. And when it surged, it did so uniformly in the infinitude of God. But when the whim surged, the insurge of this whim could never be experienced by God in his infinitely most independent beyond state 1. Because that is like sound sleep state. When we go into sound sleep, we are in the beyond state of God, Parat Par Brahma state. No experience at all. So God could not experience this. It was experienced by God eternally in the most original beyond state only through the infinite aspect of his state 2 as God in the beyond state. So everything that is, if at all you call it happening or experiencing, it starts from the beyond state of God, which is state 2 of God, and not in state 1, which is the beyond state of God.
Hence, the infinite insurge of the infinite original whim and its consequent infinite repercussions are in reality effected in state 2 of God in the beyond state.
No need to explain. Go ahead.
At the instant when the infinite original whim surged and God had the infinite original urge to know as who am I, the infinite uniformity of the infinite insurge of the whim spontaneously made manifest both the latent infinite consciousness and the latent infinite unconsciousness of God simultaneously in the original beyond state of God, who is nevertheless eternally in the most original beyond state.
So, when this urge or who am I, the hooky or the lahar or the whim emerged simultaneously. Now, this again is something which you cannot understand with our limited mind. What came out was that which was latent in the most original state, infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness, both simultaneously manifest. God is playing Diwali, Pataka. Okay, go ahead.
This spontaneous manifestation of the latent infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness simultaneously is beyond the grasp of human intellect to understand and digest.
So don't make an attempt to understand how it can be, because Baba himself says it is beyond human intellect to understand and digest.
It is indeed a paradox of the realm of reality, and it defeats all human understanding. How could God gain spontaneously his own infinite consciousness and his infinite unconsciousness simultaneously? Meher Baba, while explaining this, declared that this is a fact. and it is of the realm of reality, but it can never be understood or grasped by the mind. It is only to be realized on realizing the reality.
Because at elsewhere Baba says that mind which is limited and finite wants to understand that which is beyond mind, infinite and unlimited. How can something which is limited understand that which is unlimited? So, in order for mind to know that which is beyond mind, mind has to go. That means we have to achieve the state of manonash. Manonash means annihilation of the mind. Annihilation of the mind means God realization. Only this is in the realm of reality. And that which is in the realm of reality cannot be understood intellectually through the mind because it is beyond mind. So here Baba says it is not, it is, we said this in the very earlier chapters, that there are certain areas of thought which are ununderstandable. So we have to just give it a pass and say, okay, let's move forward that way.
At the same time, in order that we may get at least some concept of this fact effected in reality, and that we may not take it as a mere paradoxical mystery, Meher Baba made us understand this apparent paradox through the example of a child in a mother's womb. When the mother conceives, the child is under development in the mother's womb, and as soon as the development reaches a stage when, along with other developments, the eyes of the child are fully molded, the child gains the faculties of seeing and not seeing simultaneously.
So when in a mother's womb, the child is developed, and there comes a time when the eyes are molded. That is the time when the eyes get the capacity of seeing as well as not seeing. So when the eyes are closed, it is not seeing. When the eyes are open, it is seeing. That's what Baba is trying to take us a little closer to how infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness can come out of this state too, and they come out simultaneously. It is understandable if infinite unconsciousness came first and then gradually gained consciousness. No, Baba says it came out simultaneously. And both these aspects of infinite unconsciousness and consciousness were latent in the beyond state. And all that was latent is of the nothing. So actually, if you really look at it, everything is nothing into nothing. The entire creation is nothing. What we are doing now is also nothing. Everything is nothing, right?
Irrespective of whether the child after birth sees or does not see, the very fact that the eyes have been molded in the womb of his mother gives to the child the dual aspect of his own eyes. In the eyes, as soon as they are developed, the faculties of seeing and not seeing are simultaneously contained.
I hope it's understood. They are simultaneously contained. So when the child takes birth, whether it sees, when it's seeing, it's seeing. When it's not seeing, it's not. But the faculty has been developed and contained in the mother's womb. And in the same way, the faculty of infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness is there in its latent form in the beyond state of God, which got manifested in the state 2, which is the Paramatma, or the beyond state of God, state 2.
When the child opens his eyes, he will see, and when he closes his eyes, he will not see. But the fact still holds good that no sooner were the eyes developed than there was contained in them the dual faculty of seeing and not seeing simultaneously.
So here Baba is emphasizing about the dual faculty of seeing and not seeing simultaneously. So in the same way, the dual faculty of infinite unconsciousness and infinite consciousness simultaneously was there, and it got produced at the time of state 2 of God, which is the Paramatma state.
Similarly, with the insurge of the original infinite whim in God, both the infinite consciousness and unconsciousness latent in God were manifested simultaneously, which to the limited mind appears paradoxical.
It is paradoxical for us.
Thus, God, in his most original state, one of the beyond, gained spontaneously through his original state, two of the beyond, his own infinitely unconscious state and his own infinitely conscious state, simultaneously depicted in the chart as A and B, respectively.
So we had seen that in state one of God, the Paratpar Parbrahma state, there was neither consciousness nor unconsciousness. There was only the infinity of the infinitude of God. Everything was latent, everything was unmanifest. Now in state 2 of God, here Baba says, both these aspects which could not be experienced or manifested in state 1, got simultaneously manifested in state 2. So the latency has now been manifested. I'll repeat the last paragraph. Thus God, in his most original state 1, Baba uses the word most for state 1, and just original state for state 2. Thus God, in his most original state 1, of the beyond, gained spontaneously, important word, through his original state 2 of the beyond, his own infinitely unconscious state, excuse me, and his own infinitely conscious state, simultaneously depicted in state 2,
Chart.
simultaneously depicted in chart as states A and B respectively. I hope it's clear.
Consequently, on the one hand, with the spontaneous manifestation of infinite unconsciousness, God, in his infinite unconscious beyond state, shown as A in the chart, eternally remains not only infinitely unconscious of his own eternal infinite existence, as in the most original beyond state of infinitude, absolute, but he also eternally remains infinitely unconscious of his own begotten infinite original beyond state, shown in the chart as 2.
So that which is latent, for example, my cough, is manifested now. So it has manifested. What I'm trying to convey is that which was latent got manifested automatically without my trying to manifest it, just as how state 2 got manifested from state 1. All right. What is it? Consequently, correct? On the one hand, with the spontaneous manifestation of infinite unconsciousness, God, in his infinite unconscious beyond state, shown as A, that's what I said, that A is the infinite, and it will always remain, it is known as infinite unconsciousness, which will state A will always remain unconscious. State A of state 2 of God, right? Shown as A in the chart, eternally remains not only infinitely unconscious of his own infinite eternal existence, as in the most original beyond state of infinitude, absolute, but that means it is unconscious, like how it was in state 1 of God, eternally, absolutely unconscious, but he also eternally remains infinitely unconscious of his own begotten, infinite, original, beyond state shown in chart 2. In other words, chart 2A, which is in the center circle when you see the chart, is the state of infinite unconsciousness, exactly as it was in the beyond state. So that particular state will infinitely and eternally remain unconscious, not just as it was in state in state 1 of the beyond state, but also will remain infinitely unconscious as state 2A. Am I making sense? Clear?
On the other hand, simultaneously with the spontaneous manifestation of infinite consciousness, God, in his infinite conscious beyond state, marked in the chart as B, eternally becomes not only infinitely conscious of his own eternal infinite existence, as in the most original beyond state of infinitude, absolute, but he also becomes most obviously infinitely conscious of his own begotten infinite original beyond state shown in the chart as 2.
In other words, state 2b is infinite, it depicts infinite consciousness. That state 2b will remain eternally and infinitely conscious, not only about the state 1 of God. He is conscious about, in other words, he is conscious of his unconsciousness. Elsewhere, Baba says, what is God realization? God realization is becoming one with God. You are always one with God. You are never ever separated from God. When we go into sound sleep state, we become one with God in the original state 1, which is the beyond or Paramatma state. We become one with God. I'm sorry. Paratpar Parabrahma state. But the difference is, in that state, we become unconscious. If we remain conscious and experience the unconsciousness, then that is God realization. Now here there's a paradox. How can you be conscious of unconsciousness? But that is what those in the state 2b experiences eternal and infinite consciousness, not only of the beyond state of God, state 1, but also of state 2b. They always eternally and infinitely remain conscious, infinitely conscious.
In other words, only in the beyond state of God, marked in the chart as state 2, God spontaneously, with the insurge of the infinite original whim, simultaneously begets his eternal, infinite, unconscious state, marked as sub-state A, and his eternal, infinite, conscious state, marked as sub-state B.
So that is nothing to be understood. Automatically it has gained these two states.
Sub-state A is of God in the beyond state, marked as state 2. This sub-state A is of divine infinite unconsciousness of God's own infinite power, infinite knowledge, and infinite bliss. God in this sub-state A neither consciously experiences his own triune nature of infinite power, knowledge, and bliss, nor uses them.
Because they have, in state 2a, he has no consciousness that I am God. And since he has no consciousness of I am God, the triune nature, infinite knowledge, power, and bliss is not known to it. And since it is not known to him, he cannot use it.
Substate B is also of God in beyond state, marked as state 2. This substate B is attributeless and formless, but is of the highest divine consciousness of God's own infinite triune nature of infinite power, knowledge, and bliss. God in this substate B consciously experiences his own infinite power, infinite knowledge, and infinite bliss, but he does not use them. He is conscious of his reality, but is unconscious of illusion.
Now, this is very important to understand that God in state 2b is Nirgun Nirakar. In other words, he experiences the triune nature of infinite knowledge, power, and bliss. He knows he is God, but he is not Sagun Sakar. That means he is formless. And in that category, we have Allah, we have Ahura Mazda, we have God the Father. And therefore, Baba had clarified earlier on that it is so much better to worship and to approach the Sagun Sakar, which is the perfect master, or the avatar, to pray to them, to be in their company, rather than to pray to Allah, Ahura Mazda, and the Paramatma, for a simple reason that they do experience infinite knowledge, power, and bliss. They do experience the I am God state, but they have no consciousness of illusion. We are in illusion. So when we are praying to them, they are not even aware of it. For a simple reason that they do not have any consciousness of illusion. They have only the consciousness of
If
and
nat-
एक minute.
Sorry.
And this is the place, state to be, where all God realized souls, whether they are mazubs, whether they are saliks, whether they are in the Turiya Avastha, whether they are Kutubs, which is the perfect master, or Sadguru, after they drop their bodies. Where we have done the four journeys, we have done it earlier. After they drop their body, they reside in state to be disconnected from creation, disconnected from illusion, the only exception being the avatar himself. The avatar can never be disconnected with creation. And therefore, since they are not connected with creation, Baba says, that whatever you may be praying to, whosoever you may be praying to, it is taken up by those who are presently holding the office of the Sadguru or the Kutub, and they address your queries. They are away. They never reincarnate. Perfect masters never come back in their body. Why perfect masters? Even those who have God realized they are the perfect ones, the mazubs or the saliks, they never come back to creation consciousness. They never reincarnate because their journey is over. The only exception is that of a avatar or the Rasul or the Christ or the Buddha or whatever name, avatar. They are the only ones who keep coming over and over again because it is his responsibility of having created the creation. In the Nothing and the Everything, Baba talks about the mischievous chicken. So anybody who claims that he is the reincarnation of XYZ perfect master, that claim is either the person is telling a lie, he's a hypocrite, or maybe he. See, Baba is so kind, he's giving rest to my throat. So, or he is self-deluded. He just feels that I am the the avatar of XYZ perfect master. So Baba says it's an impossibility. Perfect masters don't come again. So what we were reading is that it is always better to pray to a perfect master. For example, of course now to the avatar, rather than the one who is already residing comfortably in state to be and has nothing to do with creation. The difference between the avatar and the perfect master, there are many differences. One is, I'll just digress a little bit. The avatar is the descent from top to bottom. God becoming man. That is why he is called God man. The perfect master or the Sadguru or the Kutub is man becoming God. That is why he is also called man God. The other difference is the avatar does not have to go through the involutionary process and all that. He is directly brought down with a veil, and the veil is just lifted at the appointed time, and he is being told that he is the avatar, and he starts his avataric mission. Whereas a perfect master is never born perfect. He may have been born in the fourth plane, third plane, fifth plane, whatever, and then he graduates into perfection, which is given by the any one existing perfect master of the time, and then he experiences himself as the Kutub or as the perfect. Why I am stopping is because people will not be able to hear who are there on the other side. So, That is the difference. The other difference is that the perfect masters are disconnected from creation once they go. But the avatar is always connected with creation. Always. Then that is why he is also called the eternal perfect master. The other difference is that if you go to the samadhi of a perfect master who is already passed over and is rejoicing in his mansion in state 2B, he's there enjoying. If you pray to him, he cannot help you in a spiritual way. But you may derive material benefit based on your faith in him and your connection with him. You may derive some benefit, but he doesn't do anything at all because he is not connected with consciousness, with creation. The existing perfect masters may take upon themselves the responsibility to attend to your need, but it is only material, not spiritual. Whereas with the avatar, you get material benefit as well as the spiritual benefit. It is something like, I give this example that I have this MTNL phone. In Bombay, we call it MTNL phone, and something has gone wrong. So I know one Mr. Verma, who's the head of the department. So I write, Mr. Verma, so and so, so and so. But Verma is already retired, or he may have died, and in his place, Mr. Sharma has come. So Sharma will not say, now I will not do because you have addressed to Verma. You know, Sharma will take on the job of Verma and do the job for me without my knowing that it is not Verma who is doing, but it is Sharma. In the same way, my understanding is that if your connection with the past perfect master is very close, then the existing perfect masters may take on that responsibility and answer to you. And the most important, I feel, the most important aspect of difference between the avatar and the perfect master is universal spiritual push is the job of the avatar. The perfect masters are basically the executors of the plan, the blueprint, which the avatar has already laid out. Like Baba had said that in this advent, he has laid out for the next 1,000 years or 2,000 years, he has laid out a blueprint as to where the creation will go in X number of years. And whosoever the perfect masters become, because there are always 5 perfect masters at any given point in time. So they would take on the blueprint, and they have the liberty of making slight changes here and there. They do have, because they have infinite power, knowledge and bliss. But they generally tend to stick to the plan which has already been made by their father. Today is Father's Day. So father of all fathers is our, we call it, Harry Kenmore would call Baba Pop, So he's the pop of all pops, he's the father of all fathers. So when he lays down a plan, the perfect master generally tend to follow the path of what is already laid, because he has the entire vision of where the creation is supposed to go in X 1,000 years. And that is how everything functions. Howsoever, you may say, crude, or howsoever we may not like certain things happening in our life or in the creation as such. But my understanding is it's all pre-planned, it's all done, and all these so-called political, Baba himself said, they are like puppets in my hand, So these puppets, the puppeteer, the big puppeteer would make the puppets work. Why he wants to make them work like this? Because he has a certain plan in his mind, and he takes the creation in a certain direction. Although for us it may be very negative, but actually there is a lot of positivity in the negativity, because it is this negativity only which will make us delve deep within ourselves and ask that question, who am I? Or why is things happening the way they are happening? I don't know whether I am coming across to you. Because we tend to judge and evaluate and say all kinds of things. Baba never liked it. Even during Baba's ministry, when they would read newspapers and something not so good happening, and some people, and Baba's mandali was Parsis, and Parsis are known to give nice galis, So when they do that for a certain political figure, Baba would immediately stop them and say, never say that, because you don't know, they are all puppets in my hands, and how much karma or samskars you are taking by slandering them, by backbiting them. Anyway, so much for The digression.
In Vedanta terminology, it is thus that the state 1 of Paratpar Parabrahma begets the state 2 of Paramatma, and in this state 2, God as Paramatma is eternally unconscious and simultaneously eternally conscious of his own most original state of Paratpar Parabrahma. This infinite dual aspect of the Paramatma state is pointed out in the chart as state A and state B respectively.
Okay, I'll just read it out. Basically, what Baba is saying in Vedantic terminology, it is thus that state 1 of Paratpar Parabrahma begets state 2 of Paramatma, which we have done. And in this state 2, God as Paramatma is eternally unconscious, which is state 2a, and simultaneously eternally conscious, which is state 2b, of his most original state of Paratpar Parabrahma. This infinite dual aspect of the Paramatma state is pointed out in the charts as state A and state B respectively. When we see the chart, maybe later on we'll have some provision of showing the charts, and those who are online will be seeing the chart all through, right? No? They are seeing the chart?
It'll
Keep coming. Okay. You can keep, because that is what we are discussing. It would be nice if we keep that. Okay. Yeah, please put it up. Yeah.
It naturally follows, therefore,
Otherwise, those who are watching will become unconscious. They will not know what is happening. They will go in.
it naturally follows, therefore, that the eternal unconscious state of Paramatma, marked A, in the eternal original beyond state, marked B,
Mark two.
2, eternally aspires to attain the eternal conscious state of Paramatma, marked B, which is the second of the dual infinite aspects of the original beyond God state, Paramatma, marked
So,
2.
in other words, eternally, state 2F of God, which is Paramatma, who is eternally unconscious, wants to achieve state 2B, which is eternal consciousness. That's what I said earlier on, that this whole of journey is to travel from state 2A to state 2B, from infinite unconsciousness to infinite consciousness.
Consequently, the divine goal is that the unconscious state of God in A should attain the conscious reality of the conscious state of God in B.
So the journey is from A to B, state 2, but as I said, you can't just do a shortcut. We used to call it a postman cut. You know, the postman knows all the shortcuts to how. In earlier time, they used to deliver letters individually. But you have to go via, which we will do in the subsequent session, via state 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like that. Okay.
In short, when state A consciously realizes state B, the divine goal is attained.
So in other words, the divine goal is attained when state 2A consciously gains state 2B.
For state A to realize consciously state B, there is no other alternative but that state A must gradually experience transmutation into state B and eventually become state B in all respects consciously.
So it's a gradual, you can say, Baba is using
Transmutation.
transmutation. How first God will create a creation. The creation will be absolute opposite of what the original God state is. But God is infinite power, we will be absolutely helpless and powerless. God is infinitely knowledge, God is infinite knowledge, we would experience infinite ignorance. God is infinite bliss and we will experience suffering. So that in order to experience knowledge, power and bliss, we have to go through the pathway or the passage or the tunnel of experiencing all that is opposite of our original nature of knowledge, power and bliss. And for that, creation was necessary. Creation is the divine incubator in which the consciousness of the soul incubates over a process of time and becomes perfect. And that is why there is this evolution process, evolution of consciousness. Consciousness most finite in the stone state. It is still finite in the gases, but Baba doesn't talk about the gases much, Stone and then stone, metal, minerals, sometimes they are clubbed into one, and then vegetables, and then, sorry?
Insects.
Yeah, and then vegetables, and then insects. In insects, sometimes we also call reptiles, and then we have got fish, bird, animal, and then human form. In the very first human form, the will to be conscious, I want consciousness, has already been achieved. Full consciousness, complete consciousness, total consciousness, no further extension, expansion, evolution of consciousness after the human form. Fully conscious. But instead of experiencing the I am God state, this consciousness is burdened, cluttered, enveloped by samskaras or impressions which has stuck like leech, leech, like stuck to our consciousness throughout the entire travail of evolving consciousness. So the human form, now there is no increase or expansion of consciousness. There is not even a decrease of consciousness. What is required is to shake up, like when the dog gets wet, how does it shake? Just trying to shake out the pani, the water that is there, or maybe duck, So the entire reincarnation process is shaking out, loosening, becoming loose, and then weeding out all the samskaras, all the impressions, and the consciousness is already there. I think it was in the last session I said that spirituality is not a gathering or an amassing or a collecting of something from outside, from without. It's an unfoldment from within. And this unfoldment gradually, it's all tied up like a bud flower. It's tied up with the string. And the moment the string becomes loosened, the bud blooms into a beautiful flower. So in the same way, we have all the samskaras which have bound us. So as the samskaras get loosened, as thinned out, as becomes refined, becomes finer and finer, gradually we sort of blossom. And one way which Baba advocates of doing that is to put into practice, put into action that little bit of so-called intellectual spiritual knowledge. We have to put it into action, and that will show us the next path. It is not that you will see the entire path all in one go. It is like that sensor light which I say, the moment you come closer, the light will go on. So oh, I can see the next few steps. The moment you go there, this light will go off and the next light will come on. We have got those sensor lights. So in the same way, in order to tread the spiritual path, Baba says, one way of doing it is to practice what we have learned intellectually. That will open up the path, and then gradually we will be able to walk towards the reality, truth, self, whatever you call it.
This gradual transmutation of the unconscious infinite state of God into the conscious infinite state is depicted through states 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as different states of God in the chart of the 10 states of God. In state 8, state A of God becomes fully conscious of state B.
So in the 10 states of God, state 8 is where you realize Manonash or Fanafila or God realization. And most people, the moment they achieve that state, because the very purpose of this body was to realize God. And once you realize God, there's no need for the body, and the body just drops off. And you straight away go to state 2B and enjoy infinite knowledge, power and bliss, and have nothing to do with creation. The moment you achieve God, realize you realize that creation was never there. It was only a dream. Like how we dream in our sleeping time, you dream. And you go through very beautiful dream, we go through nightmare. But the moment we open our eyes and, oh, it was just a dream. So the entire creation of millions and millions of lifetimes that we have spent, the moment our eyes really awaken to that awakening, we realize, oh, everything was a dream. And you don't give a damn sort of to all that dream, and you just enjoy your state to be, which is infinite consciousness. But some people, because of their prarabdha, because of some reason, stay on in the body, and then they tend to become, as we say, Paramhamsa, Saliks, and Sadgurus, depending upon again what is already predestined. Because somebody did ask Baba, who becomes a Mazhub, who becomes a Salik, who becomes a perfect master? And Baba, in his own inimitable way, he is a Ustado Ustad and the shrewdest of the shrewd. He says, don't worry about that. That is already preordained at the time of creation. Everything is already decided at the time of creation. So don't break your head. He's very smart, because people tend to ask some questions and Baba knows how to answer them. During the 30s, those intellectuals from the West had come and they would talk about the circle members, where am I in the circle? Avatar has a 10 concentric circle and something to do with samskara. Now I have done my hand like this, so how many samskaras have I gathered? And all that, they were really creating a headache for Baba, So Baba again in his very shrewd way, he himself says that I am Ustado ka Ustad. In his shrewd way he says, the more you ask questions, the more samskaras you will gather. So they stop asking questions, that way. So ultimately whatever okay. So that is how it is. Did I explain the last?
Yes.
So in other words, state 2A infinitely wants to reach state 2B of that is infinite consciousness. And they cannot do it directly, they have to go via 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? So the working backwards, 7 is the mental world, 6 is the subtle world, 5th is the gross world of humans, and then all the pre-human evolutionary process. And 8th is God realization. The moment you reach state 8 of the 10 states of God, you become one, you already become one with God, and you experience infinite knowledge, power and bliss. Go ahead,
What did you
Soumya.
say?
I think we have
State
just...
5, state 5 is evolution, state
6 is
6
human
is
being.
human.
Yeah.
In
I'm
this-
sorry, my mistake. Yeah, thank you. 7th is all the involutionary process. My mistake. 7th is the going from the gross to the subtle, subtle to the mental. Right. Go ahead. We just have 2 minutes more. I don't think we should start a new paragraph. Mark it where we are ending. And if anybody has any questions, has anyone any questions? If nobody has any question, it means either you have not understood anything or you have understood everything. If it is the second one, which is 2B, then I am happy that everybody understood everything. Sorry?
We are not to be.
So, thank you, beloved Baba, for giving us this opportunity to please him. I would like to forget about understanding, not understanding, because Baba himself says, understanding has no meaning, love has meaning, obedience has more meaning, holding my daman has the most meaning. And I'm sure we all are holding on his daman. But this is just to please him, because he had expressed it very expressly, that one should read God Speaks and that he'll be happy about it. So we are reading. Okay? Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. I would like to thank Rochit and Rakesh for taking over this. Otherwise, this would not have been possible in the absence of Naman. Thank you. Thank you. Jai Baba. The latent is becoming manifest now.
Oh yeah, she has a question. Please address. Shoot.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. See, sometimes it happens that because of this,
Fluctuation. But what is your
we
question?
were not online for the last maybe 1 hour, but that